Hello and welcome to the Cavern of Terror.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Cavern of Terror, and welcome to a very different style video. This isn't my normal red set movie video that I normally have, where I have all my movies up, my movie review, where I usually have all my movies and the red lighting and the really good camera. This is a very different style video. This is, you could say, a Dave McRae style video. Like, I'm doing a straight to the webcam, straight to the laptop version of a video of mine. So you could say I'm pulling a Dave. This is normally what I use when I do my live streams on every Wednesday, and I decided to not do a live stream today. I might actually do one later tonight, a surprise one, so look out for that. Well, that would be in the past now. But this is a different style video, and if you like these videos, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe we'll do another one. I was having a conversation today in Killer Flicks, and it was the Killer Flicks mod chat, because I am a mod over at the Killer Flicks Facebook group, which is all about horror. It's a horror Facebook group ran by Drum Dums. If you know me, I'm sure you know who he is. He's an amazing horror reviewer, but if there is a small chance that you have no idea who he is, head over to the Drum Dums channel. Be prepared to be flooded with content, because he has a lot of videos out, and they are all very high quality. To the point, and you know probably what this video is already about. I was having a conversation about the Halloween franchise, and I was having a conversation more specifically about Halloween 2. My point being, Halloween 2 isn't as good as you remember it.
Not for me, you son of a bitch.
Before we go any further, guys, I want to tell you that I do really like Halloween 2, and I'm going to tell you why. I really like Halloween 2 because I think it is one of the best horror sequels of all time. And it was one of the first horror sequels of all time, one of the first slasher sequels of all time. And they kind of set the trend. They did it before a lot of the other franchises were franchises. Friday the 13th came out the year before Halloween 2. We didn't have A Nightmare on Elm Street until 1984. So, this was a first of its kind. And you have to give them credit for that. I really enjoyed Dean Cundy's cinematography. As I said in my ranking video for this film, this was one of my favorite looking films in the whole franchise. It looks gorgeous. The only one that outdoes this to me is Halloween 6. Another one of my positives for Halloween 2 would be Donald Pleasance. Donald Pleasance pretty much saves this movie in the third act. He's one of the best characters in the whole movie. He's one of the best acting performances in the whole movie. And if he wasn't in this, Halloween 2 I don't think would be so much of a classic as people make it out to be. The reason why you're here is the title of this video and why Halloween 2 isn't as good as you remember it being. John Carpenter didn't really want to write this movie. He really wasn't 100% in on the storytelling in Halloween 2. This stems into a lot of different directions as to why I think this movie, in the end, other than the amazing third act, fails. First being that pretty much all the characters other than Loomis are stock slasher characters. They're not the best in the franchise. We have an airheaded nursing staff, we have an aging player, like I said in my review, that are pretty much unlikable, and we don't really have a solid heroine in this movie. We don't really have a solid main character. You can say that it's Loomis, but that's not really until about halfway through the movie. We don't get Laurie Strode, at least the Laurie Strode we had in the first one, and we sure as hell don't follow Bud. We don't follow Jimmy, and we don't follow any of the nursing staff. Jimmy is probably one of the best characters, but he gets very overshadowed by characters that we do not give a fuck about, to be honest. And they all lose any kind of build-up once we get into the hospital. As I said, that's one of the biggest negatives with this movie, the writing. We don't really get a solid character to follow throughout this movie until around the end of the second act into the third act. The writing for Halloween 2 is going to be one of my biggest decisions as to why I think this movie ultimately failed. Another thing would be plot holes. They know that Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode survived the attack of a serial killer. They know that a lot of her friends were killed. They know that there is a serial killer out there, but yet there's no one protecting her. There is one security guard in this whole hospital. There's no one outside of her room. Dr. Loomis isn't even there. He's still with the cops. So that's a big, big, big plot hole for me. Why is there no one protecting her? They know that there's a maniac act there. I don't understand that. And that's one of the biggest things that takes me out of this movie and places it way down on my list. Continuing with Laurie Strode, we have to talk about the Michael Myers Laurie Strode brother sister angle. Now, I know a lot of you like it. I know a lot of the Halloween fans love this, and it is a big hook point to the rest of the series, especially Halloween 5, especially Halloween 4, especially Halloween 6. And it just doesn't work. And you know why it doesn't work? Is because what Cody Leach said in his review of Halloween 2. Laurie Strode does not get this realization. We do. We get the realization that Michael Myers is her brother. We get the motivation. No one does. She doesn't. We don't find out in Halloween 4 because she's not in Halloween 4. We don't find out in Halloween 5 because she's not in Halloween 5. 6, we know in Halloween H2O, but she just knows it. We don't get the information given to her in the movie. She already knows it. And Cody Leach said that very well in his review. And that's one of the things that is padding in this movie. It's padding in the writing. And the writing, like I said, is one of the reasons why this movie is weighed down, because the writer did not want to write this movie. Another one of my reasons is the brutality. And I know what you're going to say, Zach, you like that kind of stuff. You like gore. You like the violence. So why is it a negative for you? And I think it's a negative because why is this movie trying to copy Friday the 13th? When Friday the 13th was a copy of the original Halloween. If you're going to stick with that slow burn and that like creepiness of the first movie with, not necessarily the most, brutal kills, keep with that. Don't go with the trend. I know what they were doing at the time worked for them, but then they had to basically rely on that throughout the rest of the franchise. And that is a big negative. Why are you copying a franchise or a movie that has already copied you? That's a cardinal sin. You should not be doing that. Going back to the characters and the fact that they're weakly written, we have a very over-the-top Loomis in Halloween 2, and it's because he has to make up for the acting that we're not getting in the other departments. We get a drugged-out Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, who barely does anything in this movie. We have an empty-headed nursing staff that some of them are killed off screen. The doctor's killed off screen. The main head nurse is killed off screen, so we don't get any character development with them. The most two characters that we get character development with are Jimmy and Bud. Bud is nowhere near a main character, and Jimmy just gets overshadowed. So then we have to have Dr. Loomis going all sorts of crazy in an over-the-top performance to try to make up for everyone else. So we shouldn't have to deal with that. Another thing that I'm going to talk about here is the portrayal of Michael Myers. Dick Warlock is Michael Myers. It's probably my least favorite version of the character. He's very robotic with his movements, and it feels like a different version. It feels like a different character. It doesn't feel like the same Michael Myers from the first one, even though that's what it's supposed to be. We get the mask from Halloween 1, and it is the legit mask, but it's wider. It's discolored because it was sitting under a bed for 2 years. So it's not the same thing. It feels like a different person because we have different movements, we have different walking speeds, we have a whole bunch of different things that just makes this feel just completely different. It doesn't feel like the same thing. So that takes me way out of the supposed to be the continuation of the whole night. This might not have been the best video I've ever done, but this was just me talking about Halloween 2 and why it doesn't really stand up to the first movie. Why it really doesn't stand up to the other sequels. Like I said, it has a lot of good things going for it. It's time, Micah. Dr. Loomis pretty much saves this movie for me. This is probably definitely going to be a controversial opinion, but Halloween 2 isn't as good as you remember it being.